Commissioner Knott.
Here.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Present.
Commissioner Sykes.
Here.
Commissioner Urban.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Hopewell.
Could I have a motion to excuse Mayor Hopewell, please? Commissioner Urban, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Would you please, all in favor, please say aye to excuse the mayor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. So the mayor is excused, and the Mayor Hopewell has asked me to let people know that he's not here tonight because he is participating in the program at Wing Stadium to commemorate the anniversary of the mass shooting in Kalamazoo. So, for our opening ceremony, we will stand and have a moment of silence, and then we will remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, Commissioners, you have in front of you the proposed agenda for the evening's meeting. Are there any changes? Seeing no suggested changes, if there is anyone in the audience who would like to speak to items on the consent agenda, these are the items in Section F, please indicate those items at this time so they can be moved to the regular agenda. Seeing nobody coming up here. Okay, City Manager, do we have any communications?
Yeah, I just want to draw attention to the retreat we're having on March the 4th. That's a Saturday. It will begin at 8:30 and go to about 12:30. So we look forward to that. It's really to review and discuss projects associated with aspirational investments that we would like to see relative to the Foundation for Excellence. So look forward to that discussion.
Thank you, City Manager. So next is the consent agenda. City Manager.
All right, we have 9 items. First is the approval of a 1-year contract extension with Alexander Chemical Corporation for the purchase of fluorosilicic acid in the amount of $112,000. Next is the approval of a professional service agreement with the Foster Group for water and wastewater rate consulting in the amount of $140,000. Next is the approval of a change order with the Road Commission of Kalamazoo County in the amount of $203,783.31 for the East Main Street Safety Improvement Cost Sharing Agreement. Next is the approval of a contract extension with Aetna Supply Company for the purchase of water meters in the amount of $250,000. Next is the approval of a contract with Hoffman Brothers Construction for the proposed construction of Farmers Alley in the amount of $955,264.60, and approval of an amendment to the local streets capital budget to utilize $154,000 of bond reserves for this project. Next is the adoption of a resolution from the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Liquor Control Commission to allow Heritage Community of Kalamazoo to obtain a non-public Continue Care Retirement Center liquor license at 2300 Portage Street. Next is the adoption of a resolution authorizing city staff to continue applying for and receiving the necessary permits to perform work within the Michigan Department of Transportation right-of-ways. And next is the adoption of a resolution designating the polling facility for Precinct 20 to be used during the election on May 2, 2017, and for each election thereafter. And then finally, the approval of mayor's appointments to the Planning Commission, the appointment of Alfonso Espinosa for a term beginning on April 1, 2017 and expiring on March 31st, 2020, the appointment of James Pitts for a term expiring on March 31, 2018, and the appointment of Saki Vias for a term expiring on March 31, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Commissioners, the requested action is to approve items 1 to 9 on the consent agenda and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. It's moved by Commissioner Sykes, it's seconded by Commissioner Knott. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Knott,
Yes.
Commissioner Mills Art,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items pass. Next are the items on the regular agenda. City Manager.
Sure. Item G1, adoption of an ordinance to amend certain sections of Chapter 28 of the Kalamazoo City Code to incorporate mandated federal, state industrial pretreatment program local limit standards and corrections to the units within the rate schedules charges.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any citizens who would like to comment on this item? If so, please come to the podium, state your name, and whether you live in the city, you will have 4 minutes for your comments. Seeing no city comments, is there, Commissioners, the recommended action is to adopt this ordinance. Is there a motion?
So move.
Commissioner Urban moves it. Is there a second?
Support.
Commissioner Milsarek seconds it. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Mills Art,
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Item G2, City Manager.
Yes, the adoption of a resolution in support of keeping open Washington Writers Academy and the Woodward School of Technology and Research. And I've been asked to read the resolution, so I'll go ahead and do that. So a resolution in support of keeping open Washington Writers Academy and the Woodward School for Technology and Research. Whereas the Michigan School Reform Office recently identified 38 schools for potential closure, including the Woodward School for Technology and Research and the Washington Writers Academy in the Kalamazoo Public Schools District. And whereas the Kalamazoo Public Schools voters demonstrated their support for schools in our community by overwhelmingly approving a bond issue in 2010, part of which funded substantial improvements to the Woodward School in 2013 and 2014 at a cost of approximately $5.5 million, and a complete reconstruction of Washington Writers Academy at the cost of approximately $17 million that was completed in 2015. And whereas among the improvements, both schools received approximately $4 million in competitive school improvement grants in 2014, the benefits of which are still being realized. And whereas Kalamazoo Public Schools have continued to show improvements in student achievement, enrollment growth, graduation rates, and dropout rates as evidenced by a 2016 report by the Upjohn Institute and Kalamazoo Public Schools data. And whereas the 4 Kalamazoo Public Schools previously included on the Michigan School Reform Office's priority list have been removed in the last 3 years, further evidence of improvement in Kalamazoo Public Schools. And whereas the Kalamazoo Public Schools have formed alliances with over 200 community partners to improve support services and learning opportunities for children, which demonstrates the broad community support for schools and students in Kalamazoo. And whereas the Washington Writers Academy and Woodward School for Technology and Research also hosted a variety of other programs and events for students and community members and act as neighborhood anchors in which with relatively high concentration of poverty. And whereas many students attending these schools are considered at risk, are eligible for free or reduced price lunch, and or are already facing additional challenges in life, and whereas closure of either or both of these schools would create a hardship for families and students in these neighborhoods and may jeopardize the students' ability to take advantage of the Kalamazoo Promise, a successful and highly regarded free college tuition program available to students of Kalamazoo Public Schools. And whereas the City of Kalamazoo disagrees with the notion that a school can be measured by one test on a given day designed to measure a proficiency and not the growth of a student's learning. And whereas the City Commission, Kalamazoo City Commission, will be expanding governmental and community efforts to alleviate generational poverty beginning this year, which will begin to address some of the outside challenges and instability that students face, and which will allow them to focus more on their education. And whereas the education is a critical factor in improving social mobility and a well-educated workforce improves economic and competitiveness in the Kalamazoo area, and whereas the City of Kalamazoo believes that closure of either or both of these schools is not a solution, as it disperses children without any assurance of improved results, And whereas recent community meetings held on this topic have shown widespread community support for education, students, teachers, and schools in Kalamazoo, and a strong desire for both schools to remain open. And whereas the Kalamazoo City Commission values public education, appreciates the critical role of our public school system for our youth and our community, and it respects the taxpayer investment that has already been made to improve these schools in our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Kalamazoo City Commission urges the Michigan School Reform Office to keep Woodward School for Technology and Research and Washington Writers Academy open, and to work with Kalamazoo Public Schools and the Kalamazoo community toward the common goal of improving education for all students in Kalamazoo and improving school performance at all schools.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any citizens who would like to comment on this item? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and whether you live in the city, and you will have 4 minutes for your comments. You could sign in. If you
I'm
want.
Frank Warren, I live in Ludland Terrace. You know, when I heard about closing this school down, I said, what in the hell are we doing in Kalamazoo wrong? Because, you know, that's a brand-new school. Now, you got another brand-new school built out there in Millwood. What's going to happen there? If you close this one, and that one ain't performing right, there'll be another school closed down. We don't need that. Trouble is, we got that nice little lady up there in Washington, you know who I'm talking about, by the name of Betsy DeVos, will make goddamn sure they probably close that schools. Betsy is not for us. Betsy is not for the school system, and never has been. She don't know what a school system is all about. She never served on a board of any school board up in Grand Rapids. So I think seriously, I'm thankful that the Kalamazoo has taken grounds tonight to find a way to keep these two schools open. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please. Would you please sign in, sir?
Sherry Opalka, Howard Street in Kalamazoo. I just want to say thanks for your work on this.
Thank you. Next, please.
Yeah, hi, Noah Curzan, North Rose Street. Also won't take a ton of time, but just want to voice my support for the resolution. I teach math at Millwood Magnet School, which is one of the schools that was recently released. So all I really have to say is that, you know, the teachers, administrators, students, staff, everybody's working really hard to hit these goals. You know, talking to colleagues and family and friends that teach in surrounding school districts, I can say that the amount of professional development and training and meetings and everything that is happening is above and beyond what's going on in surrounding school districts, which is just, again, a testament to the fact that KPS recognizes that, you know, the problems and what's going on is deep, and it's going to take everybody, the city, all the community partners, the schools, the parents, everybody kind of wrapping their arms around this to get it going. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Larry Provancher. I live at 7414 Starbrook, Portage, Michigan. I want to speak to, I heard that there's a possibility that there might be some discussion or a possible resolution or something relative to a county ID program.
Excuse me, sir. That's the next on the agenda. This is on the schools. That's going to come up next.
Can we
You have
speak
to
at
wait-
it?
you have
I'll
to
wait
wait
my
till we
turn
get
on
to
that?
that. Yeah,
Okay,
we'll
I
get right on that.
apologize. I
Yeah.
just came in a little late and I'm trying
That's
to read.
okay. We're
I'm
talking on
sorry.
the school resolution now, but that one's coming up next, so don't go
I'll-
far.
I'll be back.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this?
Hello, I'm Nehemiah Scudder, and my legal name yet is Aisha Kazad. All of you know me, I'm pretty sure. But some members of our TV audience may not know me, but I come down here fairly often. Most of my parents were teachers. And they were good teachers, in my opinion. And I like to support the money should be given to the schools to develop and to educate all our students, not just fairly bright ones are those who live in the suburbs. We need schools for the north side with qualified teachers, just like we need other schools in other parts of Kalamazoo. And if it requires an investment of somewhat more money, I think that's one of the best ways we can spend our money, is on the school system and the teachers in it and the administrators who keep it all together and the students. And I hope that this current problem of Woodward Elementary or whatever it is with the science and technology and the Writers Academy out on Portage Street will be resolved to keep them going and give them any money they may need to further that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this resolution? Okay. Commissioners, the recommended action is to adopt this resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Commissioner Knotts and Commissioner Sykes. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Urban?
Vice Mayor, I'm wondering if the city or if the commission at some point may be approached or might be willing to see what's necessary to become to file an amicus brief if this because the city the school board has announced that they are preparing to go to court on this. And it would be very helpful, I think, and to go well beyond the influence of resolution to actually put a lot of what's in our resolution into the form of an amicus brief. I just want to lay that out as a possibility. I don't know if we need to act on anything like that, but at this point, but let's, I suggest we stay tuned and see what how we can actually be helpful if it ends up having to go to court.
So we could certainly explore that. Yeah, right, good, thank you. Anybody else want to make comments? Commissioner Sykes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start, though, by thanking Commissioner Urban, because that's not something I had thought about, but I think we should do it, so I would just second that. I know whatever I say right now is probably going to be preaching to the choir. This is one of those moments where I'm proud to be a part of this body, because I know where all of us stand, you know, on the issue of educating our young people in this community. I'm proud to be a part of the Kalamazoo community because education is one of the biggest issues for all of us citywide, and that means a lot to me. You know, I am a product of Kalamazoo Public Schools, and I learned my most important lessons there, and it was, you know, there are a good number of teachers there. I can still remember names and faces and comments that I carry with me today in my life. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that. I don't often talk, you know, let people know where my children attend school. I don't normally put that out there publicly, but what I will say is that I get to see and interact with our KPS teachers and administrators daily, and they are amazing, absolutely amazing, and doing wonderful work with our young people on a daily basis. And I just want to take this moment to say thank you for that. You know, my kids, you know, they spend a good chunk of their life with other grown-ups. And they're not with me. And they are with people who not only are teaching them and educating them, but care about them, care about how they feel, care about where they're going, care about what matters to them. And that is something I am profoundly grateful for. And it's not easy, because now we have a federal administration and we have a state administration that is taking resources every year and making the road tougher for our teachers and our administrators here every year. And they are showing up every day to continue to be there with our young people. And so from the bottom of my heart, I won't go any further, but from the bottom of my heart to any teachers who are watching, to the teachers in the audience, thank you for for what you do.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else want to make any comments? No. Well, I'd just like to say, I would like to echo, I think Commissioner Sykes did a wonderful job. Thank you for what you're doing. The issue is not that the schools aren't doing their job. The issue is poverty in this community and poverty around the country. And every time we look at the studies that are done, that the most important factor determining whether kids succeeds in school is the socioeconomic condition of the neighborhood and the family in which that kid lives. So we should be putting much more effort into that, trying to help these kids and these families and these neighborhoods get up to where the support that these kids need can be there. So, Clerk Borling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Item G3, City Manager.
Adoption of a resolution supporting the creation of a Kalamazoo County ID program, and I'll read that resolution as well. Whereas approximately 27,500 out of 254,870 Kalamazoo County residents lack a photo identification card, and whereas the lack of official identification restricts residents' access to law enforcement, financial institutions, jobs, housing, healthcare, and public services that require photo identification. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the Kalamazoo City Commission supports and encourages the creation of a Kalamazoo County identification card program.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any citizens who would like to comment on this item? If so, please come to the podium, share your name and whether you live in the city, and you have 4 minutes for your comments.
Hi, I'm Londa Wheatley, and I do not live in the city of Kalamazoo. I live in Cooper Township, and I'm on the subcommittee of the outreach for the ID program, and I would really like to say thank you for supporting us and believing that this is a worthwhile thing of inclusivity and making Kalamazoo across the board. And we're in the early stages, so with your support, that adds to our case, if you will, and we're still meeting opposition, so I think this is a lovely beginning, and we have to keep fighting for it. So there are those marginalized people we still need to work for and try and get an outreach for, and the more people we can talk to about this, including all of you, which I totally appreciate you, but I'm going to ask more, go out and advocate and say, hey, this is a good thing for everyone in our community, and we'd like to do it so that it's not a card that carries a stigma attached to it, so that everyone in Kalamazoo County would like to have one. So we're trying to reach out to businesses to create an incentive program as well, so that perhaps maybe you could give 5, maybe 10% off if you show your Kalamazoo County ID card, which then keeps our dollars in Kalamazoo, generates and perhaps maybe brings more people in saying, what a lovely community. They're inclusive, they're lovely, they want to keep everybody warm and fuzzy. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Lisbeth, and I live at 5440 Parkview Avenue here in Kalamazoo. And I just want to say thank you for your support for the county IDs. This is a county-wide project, and I'm also part of the outreach subcommittee. So I just want to say thank you for helping us and for your support. And the marginalized people and the people who don't have IDs are also thanking you for this. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you. As I mentioned previously, my name is Larry Provanger. I live in Portage, Michigan. I am the one that, when I was on the county commission, I introduced a policy and it was defeated. But as a result of that, by a vote of 10-1, the county commission decided to create a task force, and we're going to report back by March 21st. All the support we can get from the city commission, City of Portage, Parchment, the libraries, any place else will help us. We need, there is a need. The numbers aren't, if you take the national average, is like 11% of the people. These are not talking about undocumented, out of status people, errants that have but just out of the normal, 11% is the national average, it's accepted almost everywhere. 11% of the people, as is mentioned in your resolution, I believe is like 27,500 people that do not have photo IDs in Kalamazoo County. There's we don't know this for a fact, but there's an estimated other 11 to 12, some people say 15,000 people that are out of status, that live in the shadows, that can't cash a check, that can't take a book out of the library, that can't go do whatever. A personal story, I lost my wallet meeting with the sheriff on this very issue about over 2 weeks ago, and I had absolutely no ID. I didn't have my driver's license, my credit cards, my social security, nothing. So I said, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to see how long I can go without using, without using an ID. After about 3 days, my son said, "You're crazy." He said, "You better get a paper driver's license." He said, because you need to have something. So I did that, and I got the paper driver's license. I didn't have any ID, picture ID, anything like that, but I've previously had it. Those people that don't have IDs, a lot of them can't ever get one. They can't get a Michigan ID. If Michigan would allow people to drive and get an ID, there would be no need for a county ID. Washington County has one. My proposition is to do exactly what Washington County is doing, not to reinvent the wheel. They've been doing it. It works, and we could put it in force right now. Nothing's perfect. It's not going to solve the world's problem. County ID does not replace a driver's license. It's a picture ID that says you're a resident in this county, and it costs some money. The costs are not that important, that significant, but in Washington County, for example, they say that they have a scholarship program, because for financial reasons, nobody's ever been denied an ID if they meet the qualifications that you can have one. There's institutions and so on that support that. So it's not. And one of the barriers, even we're on a conference call just an hour or two ago. So one of the biggest problems from people not doing it is still financial. I mean, there's other problems too, but anyway, I could speak long and hard and passionate on this, but I think it's to help people. It's to help people, to bring people out of the shadows, to do what every one of us here can do. We have IDs. There's people that don't. There's people that can't get housing, or can't cash checks, they can't open bank accounts, and so please, thank you again for supporting this and help my outreach people here to get more people to know about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Yasmin Fuentes, and I live at 3520 Shadow Bend Drive in Kalamazoo. And I am here to echo everything that has been said about the Kalamazoo County ID, and I also wanted to thank you for considering and supporting this idea, because many people, many residents in Kalamazoo County live in the shadows. They don't have access to a state ID, and therefore they're not able to access the services that the county has, basic needs, going to the doctor and checking in at the doctor, picking up a prescription, cashing a check, checking out a book at the library. These are things that these people have to live with every day, just because they're not able to, they face many barriers to obtain the documents to apply for a state ID. So this is a small change that is going to have a large impact in the community. And we also want to encourage, when this gets passed, to everyone get a county ID to reduce the stigma of those who have a county ID to be pointed out that, oh, you must be one of those groups that are not able to access, and to create community, also to have it to be a daily feature on the daily transactions, to present your county ID, to show pride of Kalamazoo County. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you very much for being here and being ready to listen to all of us. My name is Nelly Fuentes, and I live at 5440 Parkview Avenue in Kalamazoo. I'm here also in support of the County ID. I am part of the Financial Subcommittee, and there's been a lot of groundwork that has been happening in the past few months around the county ID. This issue has been looked at very carefully by all of the subcommittees, outreach, implementation, finance, needs and barriers, and I know I'm missing one, I'm sorry, but there's enough people out there doing the work. I also want to thank Chief Hadley, who's been at our meetings as well. And I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity for taking a look at this, and also echoing what everybody has just said. But one important thing is I want to invite you and the rest of the community to our task force meetings. They happen actually a few hours before this meeting every other Monday at the county commissioners at the administration building on the second floor, room 207A, and they happen at 5 o'clock. So everybody's welcome. Everybody, commissioners and public in general are welcome to come and join join the task force or join one of the subcommittees from the task force. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak to this issue? No, thanks. Okay, Commissioners, the recommended action is to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Milzarek and Commissioner Urban. Is there any discussion? Does anybody want to say anything? Yes, Commissioner Urban.
I have a question. On this ID, besides the name of the person and a photograph, will their address be on that too?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll have their photo ID, it'll have their address, it'll have an identification code that will be issued by the county clerk's office if it's passed. So there'll be a way to identify them.
Okay.
And we have and a signature, and the residence has to be proven that they're part of Kalamazoo County.
Thank you.
So that's part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? I would just like to say I want to thank Larry Provancher for bringing this to the attention of the community, because I think it's such an important thing, and I look forward to the day when people can come out of the shadows, and it will help them to become fully participants in this community. So, Clerk Boiling, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Excuse me. The resolution passes. So now we are at the opportunity for citizen comments. Anyone wishing to address the commission? Well, excuse me, are there any reports? Oh, we have a report. I'm sorry. Sorry, Nehemiah.
I'll be brief. Couple of things. I just want to highlight the great work that our public services crews did last week. There was a vehicle that struck a utility pole along White's Road and Bronson Boulevard that damaged one of our traffic control boxes, traffic signal control devices, and I go through there quite often and watch them at work, and within a day or two, that was all restored. In fact, they had to take the signals themselves down and put new ones up. So it was quite amazing, the work that was done there in coordination with Consumers Energy. Also, in the tax assessment notices that went out last week, there was a pamphlet with that that demonstrated the property tax reduction that was approved in the city's budget, going from 19.2705 mils down to 12 mils. And I believe some of the information on that assessment notice may have caused some confusion. So let me try to explain. The assessment notice is basically a demonstration of the taxable value and the assessed value of the properties, not the millage rate. So what is done is in February, those assessment notices go out to every property owner in the city and show, the notice shows the increase in values from prior year or from this year to next year. And it's that increase that the tax rate is applied to. So what was shown on the notice was an increase in taxable value, which is regulated by Proposal A, and the assessed value, which is done through equalization and through our assessor's office. Those numbers do not represent actual taxes that people will have to pay. I think there was confusion that some of the increase, or increase was demonstrating the taxes that they'd pay. So that was values only. So now you've got to take that value increase and apply the income tax, or the property tax rate. The rate itself will, as I mentioned, be going down. So you've got to look at the increase, what you would have paid with the existing millage rate of 19.275 compared to, on that new value, compared to the reduced rate of 12. And so there will be a property tax reduction if you look at it that way. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. So we don't have any unfinished business, policy items, but you do have something under new business.
Under new business, correct. We have on our calendar a work session that was scheduled for February the 27th. And given the fact that we're going to be meeting a good part of the day on March the 4th, consideration was given whether that work session should be canceled to account for that March 4th retreat. So that's a question for the commission.
So, Commission, do we want to have our meeting next Monday, February 27th, or do we just want to meet at the retreat, which will be the following Saturday? Commissioner Urban?
I'd be willing to have this meeting on the 27th be canceled as long as it extends the period in which we can consider having work sessions, because there's a lot of stuff still going on we have to pace ourselves with. We could have a bunch of meetings now and use up our experiment period here for trying this and still not have everything done. So I'll support the recommendation to cancel this meeting with the understanding that we can add a replacement meeting on later on in the coming months.
Thank you. Commissioner, any other comments? Or yes, Commissioner Massar.
Thank you. Just sort of to tag on to Commissioner Urban's comments, I think that I know Manager Isma, you'd mentioned previously us discussing topics at the retreat. I think that would be a great time for us to talk about, formally making sure we get all those meetings in and topics set to them. So just wanted to throw that out for the group and the public as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, you recall a work session we had last fall, I believe, or summer, where we identified several topics.
It was in the summertime.
We'd like to, at this retreat, kind of revisit that list, refresh it, and then we can start slotting those in months coming up. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? So it's a consensus that we're going to cancel next week's meeting. Okay. We have to have a vote? We have to have a formal vote on it?
Right, because you're amending your schedule of meetings.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to cancel next week's meeting?
I move that we amend the City Commission calendar to remove the February 27th work session.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments? Any comments from the audience on that? No, I don't think so. So, Commissioner, City Clerk Pauling, will you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present, yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Knott.
Yes.
Commissioner Milzarek.
Yes.
Commissioner Sykes.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The meeting is canceled for next week. So now is the opportunity for citizen comments. Anyone wishing to address the Commission on any topic should come forward to the podium, give your name and whether you live in the city, and you have 4 minutes to make your comments.
Well, I spoke before, and I'm again Nehemiah Scudder, but I have the legal name of Alicia Kazat, and I live at 1215 Oakland Drive, which is sometimes called Transition House, where I'm looking for more permanent housing eventually, and have a helpful place to live in the meantime. You know, I don't know if any of you know this, but the terms, the right wing and the left wing in politics are fairly well defined in America, but you know where they came from. Well, when the French Revolution took place and the Parliament was established, the right wing sat on the right side because they were rich, and the left wing were on the left side when they were poor. So the criterion in the first place, which is not necessarily the case anymore, was the right wing meant rich people, left wing meant poor people. Well, I'm poor, and traditionally I've been mostly left wing. But these days we have people like Frank, who does not have a lot of money, but who represents some of the issues of the so-called right wing. And you know, I think it's good for Kalamazoo that every so often we agree on issues. And when we came together to support the education prospect earlier this evening, we agreed on that. We want our kids to be educated and our grandkids and so forth. And that's true throughout politics, whether it's left wing, right wing, or in the middle. And hopefully other issues sometimes Frank and I agree on, and when we do, it's probably a worthwhile cause. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Hey, my name is Frank Weissel of the Lynn Terrace. I just wanted to bring up something tonight that I did the February the 10th, in case you guys did not know it. It was the 80th anniversary of a very, very important part of our history. That was a sit-down strike in Flint, Michigan. You know, Cooney talked about poverty up here tonight. He talked about, it had been for those guys in Flint, Michigan, sitting in that building, we wouldn't have the wages we got today. People have condemned the unions because they said the union's no good, but that's not true. That's not true about unions. Unions are as good as the people in them. And when I was up there to Flint, I listened to some of these stories that people had brought down, old history books and you name it, and even a video of how GM hired goons to try to bust the windows and get to the people, get in and beat them up. And it had been for a Democrat governor at that time, they would have did it. He sent the National Guard in there to protect those guys while they were in there on strike. You know, and today I'm very happy I could go. I went up there and seen all this. And for dinner we had bean soup. Well, I had a talk with Owen Beaver, who is is past president of the UAW. Also, I talked with the CIO new president, who is Owen Beaver's son, Ron Beaver. We had to talk about a little incident that happened here in Kalamazoo at the county board. You know, there's one county commissioner on the county board that will not get no more endorsements from the UAW. They will not get no more endorsements from the CIO. In fact, they will not get no help from the Action Community people, this CAP Council. They also are going to turn this person down because what they did at the county was way out of range. So they've turned around and said, thanks for telling us, Frank, what you said. We'll investigate it. If we find out what you're saying to the truth, we will no longer support that person on that board. They will be gone. They will not support her for any offices anymore. She cannot get no help from the UAW. You know, that's the reason why the UAW is a big, strong union. It's still strong. In fact, we're going down March 3rd to Camden, Mississippi. They're going down there and they're going to rally down there to get them organized down there because they've got a company down there doing organize. The UAW down there, they're going to go down there in busloads to show them that the union's still there. And I will tell you right now, it wasn't but for General Motors over here, you wouldn't have had the houses go up the prices they went up, the nicest houses they built here in Kalamazoo. You would never had that. It had been for that plant over there being over. In fact, nobody wanted that plant except Kalamazoo accepted it. That plant was not accepted in Battle Creek. They didn't want it. And they had the empty land for them. They had the Oliver building they could have bought and put it in there, and they said, no, we don't want you here. That's the reason why you're seeing what you're seeing today. They moved in here and bought that land they did out here on Sprinkle Road and built. That was the story behind that General Motors deal. And when they closed that plant, this is the cleanest plant in Kalamazoo. That's why they sold it. And right now, I'll tell you what I'm seeing with our president, God pity us. Hang on for your cheeks if you're hip here, because you're going for a ride. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Yeah, my name is Jim Putman, and I'm from Portage, Michigan. And this story happened a long time ago, maybe 60 years ago, but bear with me with it, please. Sergeant Robert Al Goodman, he was one of the first African-American police officers. And he retired, he was the first to retire after 25 years of service. He went to the police force at 1951 and retired at 1976. That's 25 years. He created improvements at the police department, citizens complaint office, Citizens Watch program, ride-along program, youth groups, summer camps for youth. He spoke to civic groups, high school students, and college students about the operations and limitations of the police department. And he married Juanita Goodman. She was one of the first African-American teachers and administrators and the first principal at the secondary school. What I'm getting at, they were very, very nice people, and they set a kind of a good example for me. They were my neighbors when I was about that tall, and they gave me my first kite, and good to everybody. And Mr. Goodman, Al, he rode the motorcycle through here. Maybe some of you remember or not, but he rode the motorcycle through here. But what I was trying to get at, he passed, but I'd like to get a memorial sign up for him. I wanted to get a street named after him, and I had a little bit of trouble getting that because I went to Parsons Street, and this is $1 million street for me, the advertisement there to help him and help the school and help the church. What I mean is Parsons Street runs into North Bertie, and on this side, Mount Sinai, the church is there, and on this side is Lincoln School. Well, what I mean by that, if they could put a memorial there, it would not only be a blessing for Mrs. Goodman, she's still alive, she's 90 years old, but the Lincoln School, she didn't teach there, but she taught. And if the little kids in the school, the teacher could tell them about Mr. and Mrs. Goodman, and it'd be a blessing for them, and maybe some of them would come up to look at Mr. and Mrs. Goodman as leaders, not followers, because a lot of people aren't born with leaders. Some people are born with followers. And not to whine about this or brag about it or anything, but I do know what I'm talking about. I never seen my dad sober one Saturday for 40 years. Not 4 years, 40. So when I see people, I don't mean to judge people, but I can tell where they're coming from right away. And anyway, I tried to get the name of the street changed, but there was the Gibson guitar, and the woman, they didn't completely turn me down. Everybody signed the paper they give me. Everybody signed it, but the Gibson guitar, the woman told me, she says, well, we've been here for years. I doubt if they'll change that name for you. So I didn't fight it any more than that. I thought, well, I'll find another street. There's plenty of streets in town. Well, I looked around, I walked all through town.
No, yeah, that's your time, sir. Everybody gets 4 minutes. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. No, that's okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. No. Call him later. Okay. Next, please.
Hi, I just want to say thank you on behalf of those
You
who
gotta
came.
give your name and,
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Yasmin Fuentes, and I live at 3520 Shadow Bend Drive. And I want to say thank you for supporting the Kalamazoo County ID on behalf of all of us who came here to speak about it. And thank you for standing by those marginalized groups who unfortunately are living in the shadows right now. And we're going to keep working hard on it. I'm also on the task force, so you'll probably see more of us around. So we just want to say thank you for supporting this.
thank you. Are there any other citizens that would want to comment tonight? No, okay, seeing none, at this time we will hear from any commissioners who want to make comments. Commissioner Mozart?
Thank you. I wanted to thank everyone who came out tonight. More importantly, I wanted to really thank those of you in the room tonight and out in the community who are really doing a lot of great work, seeing a lot of very important and engaging community activism lately, and it makes me really proud to be part of this community. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Merrill?
Well, I could say the same thing, but I'm going to add something else. In connection with the assessment notice that went out, just to give one kind of an example of the kind of savings that one might expect from the reduced millage. Remember, those numbers that you saw on the assessments, or that's the value of the house, not the value, not the amount of the taxes. So the millage rate is going to go down by 7 mills, and so if your taxable value of your house is, for example, $50,000, you'll be saving approximately $350 in taxes in your summer tax bill coming up. And you can ratio that up or down depending on what your actual taxable value is on that notice. So be thinking about what you could do with that savings. You might need to buy a new washing machine. But if you don't need a new washing machine, think about donating all or part of that to the Foundation for Excellence, which is going to be kicking off pretty soon to try to raise a great deal of money to keep that millage at that low rate and have the city's revenues come from the interest on and earnings of that endowment fund. So the bigger that fund is, the more the earnings are, and the safer our low tax rate will be for hopefully in perpetuity. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Knott?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just for City Manager Ritzma, piggybacking on what Commissioner Urban said, I, on Thursday and Friday of last week, attended a handful of meetings at NACD, and there's quite a bit of confusion about what you reported out today. So through our social media, our newsletter, and maybe even giving the neighborhood associations some language that simply explains what you explained tonight, because there are folks that are definitely confused by the assessment that came out, as well as the little one-pager.
Sure, we can do that. And I've been trading phone calls with Maddie Jordan Woods, so trying to touch base with her.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Sykes?
I don't have much to say. I just want to say how proud and grateful I am to be in the city, to be a part of this community, to be a part of this commission, and say I look forward to seeing the county implement our new county ID program, and I'm looking forward to applying for my own. Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well, I know you said this at the beginning, but I did want to remind everybody that the mayor was representing us as a city tonight at the event. It was out at Wing Stadium, recognizing the very, very unfortunate events that we are now at the one-year anniversary point. Also, he was very clear that he was in support of the resolutions that we passed tonight, and I'm sure people would assume that, but he wanted to make sure that folks knew that. And lastly, even though several of us have commented on it, it is the case that taxing and valuation and mills are nuanced and complicated subjects, and the best way to address it is find simple bullet points, I think, to try to describe the situation. I've also heard some concerns from folks about maybe the tax savings won't be as much as they had hoped. And I think part of that is coming from the fact that we've thrown around this percentage that property taxes will be reduced by 38%. Often, people don't spend their evenings pouring through their property tax statements, but just a reminder here that the property taxes that we pay are for a great, great deal of things in Kalamazoo County, most of them that we vote for ourselves, things that we decide to bill ourselves based on our property values. So that means that in the grand scheme of things, the total tax bill is not being decreased by 38% because the city portion of it is only a portion of it. I would say for the owner-occupied property, probably, yeah. So somewhere in the neighborhood of, relative to the entire tax bill, I figured 13, but city manager told me somewhere around 11% reduction in the total tax bills. That's relative to the fact that even though it's great that we're reducing city taxes and making up for those with the Foundation for Excellence, we do not have the luxury or the opportunity to do what would be painful to other institutions, reduce the tax revenue that they receive, whether it's Kalamazoo Public Schools, whether it's Kalamazoo County for the public safety millage, whether it's Kalamazoo Valley Community College, all the other great things that we pay for in this generous community. So it is true that the bill, the savings itself may not seem like a life-changing amount. I want to remind people that this is one piece of a bigger plan, and it is a modest attempt to bring down the millage rate that is a big burden for people that live in the city of Kalamazoo. I think across the county, there are in the neighborhood of, and I could be overstating this a little bit, about 60 different millage rates paid depending where you live. And that's even the case in the city of Kalamazoo, because there are some portions of the city of Kalamazoo where people aren't paying, for example, the Kalamazoo Public Schools millage rate, but a Portage Public Schools millage rate. So there's all kinds of overlapping millage districts that create, as they total up, the complete millage rate that you pay any given place. That said, I hope that didn't complicate it more, but I think I don't want to diminish the fact that this is even, someone made a comment to me, well, someone's only saving a couple $100. I know a lot of people that a couple $100 is a big chunk of change to save. So I'm very grateful for that approach. I think it's a wise approach in Kalamazoo. And I concur that if you are lucky enough to live in Kalamazoo and as a result receive a reduction, that the opportunity to donate even a small portion of that back to the foundation is coming up in July. It would be a great time to take advantage of that.
Thank you, Commissioner. So today is the anniversary of the mass shooting here. And I think it's really important that we look at what we can learn from that. I was at an event yesterday that was commemorating this at Second Baptist Church. And they had people come up who had a family member killed by guns. And there were about 13 people that came up. And it was so moving. I think the ones that moved me the most were the mothers of the two young men from the Edison neighborhood who lost their lives earlier this year. And I really think it's time that we begin to look at how come this is happening more in our country than in other countries around the world. And I really do think that we have to look at the whole issue of the availability of guns in this nation. And I think it's rational, reasonable things that we could do, such as universal background checks, giving local communities the ability to ban guns in schools, in playgrounds, in arenas, in churches, on college campuses, mandatory locking of guns when they're in your house and making people accountable for that. Because there's too many of our people that are suffering because of this unaccountable use of guns. I'm not saying people shouldn't have guns. That's not my judgment. That's not my decision. But certainly, we can learn from what other countries do and do a better job on that. With that, we are adjourned. I messed it up at the end. Then I lost it all.